Brilliant. Okay, we'll begin. So we're here to talk podcasting, and the aim is to answer every question you could hope to ask around B2B podcasting, okay? And throughout this, the answers will be based on our experience out there, working for clients, doing it for ourselves. It will be from research. You know, this is very important to us, and we're at the forefront of everything. So we're constantly researching and keeping up to date. And then there'll be an area where we're taking a best guess, essentially. I'll probably frame it as the answer probably lies here. But podcasting, especially in this format, it's a form of marketing. And within that, experimentation is really important. But yeah, let's dive in. So why do a B2B podcast? Now, there's a few main reasons which govern all of this that we're going to go over, but really it's positioning for your business or for yourself. It's marketing, so the marketing value is immense, and it's the content you get from it. And then it's the platform takeover, right? So podcasts, and we'll go into more detail on this, they're becoming more and more important, more and more sought after, and there's a big opportunity for businesses, but also it's a pathway for video, right? And we're primarily talking about video podcasting, and you'll see why that is important and why that's the future. But yeah, platforms, they're all video first now, you know, and the beauty of podcasting and how you can repurpose it is now that platforms, TikTok, Insta Reels, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, now that they've all sort of been copying off each other slowly over the last few years, your content will work across all without too much manipulation. So they're really good value, really good. And it's real people, okay? So we'll have all seen it in the marketing world where AI and the access to it is, you know, the negative side is everyone's starting to sound pretty similar. And it's not a new problem. It used to be the reason a lot of websites would look quite generic or sound, and the copy on there would sound generic, is you sort of look at competitors, do a version of what they're doing. Okay, but we're seeing it now on platforms, LinkedIn posts especially. Feed it into ChatGPT, get the same stuff out, put it out there. It's not good enough. You need real people. And so video, yeah, really humanizes the brand and the business. And personal branding isn't really an option anymore. It's a term that's been bandied around for ages, but really people are connecting with people. You've probably said people buy from people. And it is true. And in a marketing aspect, you know, it's they've got to know, like, and trust you. And you can't do that without lifting your personal brand. And then it's your differentiation and your access to explainer videos, okay? So there's a lot of industries, and we're similar, and you just get lumped together. You know, you're just another law firm, accountancy practice. You do SEO like everyone, like the other SEO companies. You do marketing like the other creative agencies or marketing agencies, and you just get lumped together. So what this does is it helps, and podcasting helps differentiate you. So you can have guests on so they can see how you've been working with people. You know, they're your live testimonial videos. You can discuss your approach. They can get to know your mission and your purpose and your values on how you approach things. And that is your differential, and your USPs can shine through in podcasts as people spend more time with you. So they're really good for that. And yeah, that feeds into it's just pure positioning. Okay, so it puts you as a leader within your industry because, you know, there's a misconception everyone has a podcast. But if you think about your competitors, how many of them actually are doing podcasting and consistently, regularly, and keep it going? Probably none, you know. But it stops you being faceless, you know, and just being a voice for the, like right now, screaming out into the algorithm. It puts a face to it and a purpose to it. And it's brand positioning in motion. You know, it tells your market, we're proud of what we do, we're talking about it, and, you know, there's transparency and authenticity out there. And yeah, actually, I thought I'd have to push this point a lot harder, and us as a company would have to push it a lot harder. But we recently launched a podcast, and the CEO just messaged me straight away as it was launching. It was like, great launch and everything. And he said, Rob, don't show me the stats. I don't care. That audience will grow. Right now, I need the customers I'm speaking with to know I've got a podcast. Yes, it looks as good as Diary of a CEO because that's the high standard we achieve. And so for him, he understood the importance of the positioning, the brand trust, the brand elevation, and he needed that in place. And it's in place. And so, yeah, a podcast becomes proof of your brand's quality, brand trust, and it does it fast. Okay, there's something tangible about when you go through the effort of making a good video podcast that people can see, even before they hear it. Within milliseconds, they've made a judgment of this and you and your brand. And yeah, in an algorithmic world, human is your competitive edge because your competitors won't be doing it, but you can. And this is about empowering you, showing you a way forward. And so the marketing value, so I absolutely love podcasting. You can probably, hopefully tell how passionate I am about it. And it's because I'm a marketer and the marketing value is just immense. So we've been going for 10 years and we would create these wonderful videos for people and businesses and we'd give them to them and they'd work and they'd be successful and they can run campaigns and feed off of it. But then how do you keep that going? Because there's a big cost there. And how do you make it consistent? Because there's a time constraint. You can't dedicate weeks of your time to this. But podcast is solving it. So they're really high quality. That's what you need to strive for. And it's important to know that everyone watching this now, they have access to the ability to make their podcast as good as High Performance, Diary of a CEO, Call Her Daddy, all of them really. They can stand toe-to-toe, and the tips today will show you how to do that. And it's authentic. So part of this, and we'll discuss it a bit later, is authenticity is, it's a word that's bandied around again, but it is important. But people feel that, if it's you and a co-host, if it's you and a guest, if it's a 30, 40-minute podcast, they get to know you. And you can't put a facade on for that long, and you don't want to. You want to be your authentic self, and that comes through. So there's real authenticity in there, and it's content at scale. From we'll definitely get into this, but from a single shoot, however long that session is, you'll get multiple episodes, and then you pull all these clips out, all this content, and you just know every single week you've got videos going out, quality videos, authentic videos, just there, done, delivered. Beautiful podcasting. And then, it's that regularity, so the consistency, and Seth Godin says, consistency works because it's different, because it establishes trust. Now, are your competitors putting out 2 short-form videos every single week? No, they're not. But podcasting will give you that ability. It's worth that investment to set up. And we talk about, and it's a business term, E.L.F, E.L.F, easy, lucrative, and fun. Now, once you've got it in motion, and that's either in-house, get the right partners in place, makes it easy, and it just gets easier over time. Then the lucrative side is there's immediate wins to be had, but it's lucrative in terms of the sheer amount of content you're going to get. And then fun. It's you talking about your business, talking passionately about what you do, showing how much you care about your clients when they're on as guests. It's fun, and they are fun to do. And so it sort of solves the iron triangle, really. So you've probably seen this before, but it used to be you can have high quality, fast, but it's going to cost a lot. You can have things that are cheaper cost, fast, but the quality suffers. Or they're, cheaper cost, high quality, but it'll take longer. Podcast sits in between all of that and brings them together. There rarely is cost-effective ways of getting this done, hitting the high quality, and definitely getting the speed, so getting all that content set up and ready in the bank. And then just the fundamentals. This is from Alex Hormozy, who's a bit Marmite, but he is a passionate businessman, and he says, around the principles of know, like, and trust, a single 1-hour podcast accomplishes more what 480 shorts would need to achieve the same level of exposure. And this is about a volume game, really. So short form videos will expand your reach, introduce people to to the podcast and also the company. But then you get those hardcore people, and you don't need hundreds of thousands. You need hundreds, tens of hundreds, like just tens. And if they're spending this amount of time, they're your ICP because you're talking specifically about their problems and your service and your approach. They're spending this time for you. So it's that exposure with your ideal clients. It's valuable stuff. And yeah, it's content that serves both marketing and sales. So now a lot of people approach podcasting as top of the funnel awareness, get some early leads to nurture and bring through. And that does happen and can happen. But really, the sort of seen benefit that you'll start realizing quite quickly is the shortening of buying cycles. So when we started doing our own podcast, Brightcast, we noticed our sales conversions on discovery calls and meetings just going up and up and up. And on many of them, they were referencing the podcast because we would send them like, oh, you're inquiring around, doing a campaign for Christmas. Check out this podcast where we discuss it. So it's a bit of position in there, a bit of brand trust because they can see the quality of it. But really, there was just a tonal shift in those meetings, and it changed the mindset of going into them, and the conversions went up. And then, we've got one of the podcasts we do is Bev Wakefield's Beyond the Numbers. And shortly after they started coming out, she went to a networking event, bumped into someone and mentioned doing her podcast, and it's just come out and things. And they says, oh, I'll check it out. And then they contacted her the next day and said, I've actually been thinking about switching accountants. And a couple of days later, they'd switched. That's days, not the normal weeks. So, it's anecdotal, those bits, but you would definitely experience it and you'll definitely feel it as it comes in. Yeah, and these benefits happen fast. So there is a bit of a distinguishing thing with creators launching their podcasts. So when their revenue comes from the podcast itself, it takes time to get there. A lot of people, and there's lots of stats around there, but it says really for momentum on that side, it's like 30 episodes, depending how you release them. Existing podcasts, I think High Performance quote 6 years was a big turning point. Diary of a CEO, similar. So it can take time to monetize the podcast itself. And that is something you should definitely do because it can happen and will happen. And you can get sponsors. You only need a few thousand monthly downloads. It builds and builds and compounds. And you can get to a point where the revenue from the podcast itself pays for the podcast itself. But actually, as a business, you've got an advantage. You can make money immediately because you've got a service and a product ready to go. And that's what your podcast is for marketing the business. You've got to remember the purpose on why do you want to do the podcast. And then the other thing is reach. So if you get the right guests and the right quality, you need to have qualities, things they're proud to share, you'll tap into their network and greater exposure. You're on social media platforms that are already pushing video hard and you're feeding it with consistent video, which is great. And then the other ways to use it. So newsletters, there's a stat where even just having the word video in your subject line can improve open rates by 300%. That's mental, it's really good. It's and the other thing is, as soon as you start having guests on and you start promoting them and raising their ships as well, it'll help you and allow you to get more guests because they can see the quality of what you're giving. They can see they'll get their moment to shine for their network and it'll be brilliant. But video podcasts, right? So anyone can do a podcast. Everyone's got access to StreamYard or the online podcast things. But really, video podcasts, and particularly quality, is important right now. It has to be. There's been a monumental shift, okay? And getting to know you means getting to know your face, know, like, and trust. You've got to be a real person. People are going to start doing AI-generated podcasts. Video might eventually catch up and have the avatar there. There's negatives around that. So it's a thing where if you hear a good song and you think it's an Oasis track, this was on the Nudge podcast recently, you think it's the Oasis track, you can enjoy it and say, yeah, that sounds good. As soon as you discover it's AI, you hate it Okay, and that is a psychological effect that's going to happen. So I think it's definitely get your face out there. People need to know it's you. And yeah, in the AI noise. And then most importantly for me, it's how do you grow your audience? How do you get the reach of your marketing content? How do you grow your business on platforms prioritizing video content? Use video. It's simple, right? And I think what stops a lot of people is what to use, in terms of just pure video content, not podcasting, what videos to use, how to do them. There's a knowledge gap there. Podcasts done right take away those objections and gives you the video. So you shouldn't need it at this point, but let's go through some stats quickly. So there are 1 billion monthly podcast users on YouTube. 1 billion. YouTube's the most, I think it was 2-3 years ago they overtook Apple and Spotify. And YouTube is a video platform, so it has to be in there. Search interest on video podcast is up and up year on year. You can see that going through. And the shift from passive listening to active viewing creates stronger audience connection. That's really important. And that's the Alex Hormozy bit. That's people spending time with you. And then YouTube as a platform, it's just overtaken ITV, so it's only behind BBC as the #1 media outlet in the UK. And yeah, the YouTube viewing on TV sets has doubled in the last 2 years. So essentially, it's becoming TV shows. Now, Spotify, they're not going down without a fight, and they're pushing video podcasts hard. Consumption's up, but if you listen to their ads, if you don't have Spotify Premium, everything on there is just pushing video podcasts. And yeah, it's going big increases, and they're not going to go down without a fight. And then beyond that, you've probably seen in the news that Netflix are now putting on some Spotify podcasts on their Netflix streaming channel. So it's going to, I think they've chosen 16 initially, but are they going to open that up? Probably. As Spotify look for that impact into the homes that YouTube have already got. And the beauty is, you have to choose between them. You've got access to the platforms. So here, I'm going to try and preempt a few questions. These are typical ones we run into. Is the market saturated? No. There is 1 billion monthly viewers on YouTube wanting podcasts, okay? I think the estimated usage at the minute is around 60 million podcast users. No, 300 million. 300 million regular podcast listeners. So it's definitely not saturated. And if you think of it, in your industry, it's definitely not saturated. Are people talking about the service you deliver and the products you do and the change you have in your clients? No, they're not. You've got a unique voice and a unique area of discussion, and there will be an audience for that, which we'll get into. Too boring an industry. I love this. So our history is working in the B2B marketing sector and with B2B companies, and the drier the company, the better, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel to stand out against your competitors. You have a good novel podcast, you'll stand out immediately. But is it too boring? I think there's an approach for every single company here, okay? We're talking to a company we've worked with in the past who do like logistics shipping software, okay? Now, they want to do something, and they think podcast is the right idea to bring their personality out. And I think they can lean into it. And like the title of the podcast could be, is there actually anything interesting about shipping logistics? And it just frames it nicely. But in that, they can talk about the problems they're solving, the way they approach it. They can bring clients on so, their competitors can see who they'll have similar problems and fix it. I don't think there's an industry that's boring enough that doesn't warrant podcasts. And also, you can use a podcast for a limited series and fill some content gaps. You can have on your use podcast formats as a frequently asked questions on your website. There's lots of uses. How do I know if podcasting fits in the marketing mix? Yeah, video should fit in there. There'll be gaps that video can plug, but yeah, if you're looking for that consistency, you're looking for that brand trust, podcasting does that. But also, actually, if you get the quality right, it gives you permission to do other things. So there was a rise, but still not enough people doing it, where they're just taking out their phones, filming them, giving updates on things they're doing, right? Now, a lot of the barriers to that is a quality barrier and people not wanting to almost subject their brand to it. But if you've got consistent content of this quality going out, it gives you permission to do that more, and empowers your team to do that more. Because, yeah, they'll put it out, the quality might dip, but it's authentic. It should be engaging, of course. It still has to be good content. But then there's professional stuff, or the stuff you've set up with professional equipment in-house to do. That's coming along straight away. So it's a nice balance and gives you a permission. Can I just do audio? I'd say not. As interesting as your topic is going to be, people need to see your face. How are you going to grow the audience using audio clips? It's going to be difficult. People do it, but a lot of those, it's established. And I think having good video shortens that time. I've done some consultancy work with a producer down in London who does, it's like a comedian-led podcast. And they launched in April and they've got to a monthly downloads now. They've got famous comedians, Ramesh Ranganathan, people like that as guests. So that's helped, of course, but they couldn't have done that with audio, just audio. No way. And then, what kind of podcast? We'll get into this, but really it's about experimentation, giving it a lot of thought. But do you want to show guests? Do you want to show more of your team? Is it a co-host thing? Do you want to do more educational stuff? So shorter form, 10 to 15 minutes, direct to camera. There's lots of options. And I'm a big advocate of doing a few of them and testing them, because there's no rules in podcasting. There's nothing to break. There's best practices, which is a lot of what we're talking about, but there's no rules. So you find your own path, but test it with your audience and test different platforms. I've got some good examples on that. And the purpose. So always bring it back to the purpose. What are we trying to do? Now, for most, and I think for all, it should be about positioning, competitive edge, and then marketing content, fueling that marketing. It's really important. Use them as a way of taking away the pain points, taking away the objections that you handle every day at your business, and innovate. If you're in an industry, you don't need to break the mold of podcasting to really stand out, but it should contain some innovative ideas, which we'll go through a few examples later that might hopefully spark some ideas. And it's your unique voice. So the other thing to do is not look at any other podcast and be like, oh, I want that style of editing. I want to sound like them. I need a presenter voice. No, it's your authentic self. It's your unique voice. You learn from them. Ask, what's our version of that trailer? What's our version of that cut down? What's our version of that branding that wraps around it? And format we've sort of touched on. Beyond the Numbers is a great example. They do all of them, so it's good. But we encourage it with the people that turn up as well in the studio. We say, because for a lot of people, they can get one or two guests quite easily to come on the day, so they can film those episodes, but then they can do team episodes, they can do shorts, they can fill gaps, and experiment, use them in different ways. And so the questions here, can't get clients as guests. So some industries, they're a bit more protected, and you might, I don't know, if you're an insolvents practitioner, you might not be able to get a client to talk about how they went bust. But what you could do is you can have a co-host scenario, and you can chat about projects you've been working on or bringing to a close. These are different format points. And you can talk about the client work without naming the client. That's fine. And then there might be a logistical issue. So there might be, our clients are global, but there's smart ways of doing that as well. So you can still do a studio setup, and you could have a monitor, and you could do, it's like an old school news report, Sky News thing. That'd be really cool. We're looking at innovative ways. This is quite a bonkers person, and we're looking at a mannequin with a TV for a head, and they're going to be on that. So there's lots of stuff you can do to actually get clients as guests. And then just simply, as soon as you've got some podcasts out, or even the branding and the materials, you can put together a package to present to them in this is the kind of thing we're going to talk. This is the mission of the podcast. This is why it's important to us. And then this is what you're going to get out of it. You're going to get these clips. You're going to get this content for your own personal branding. And time commitment, that's a big one. And that's what we've worked hard at taking away. So our experience is quite counterintuitive, where CEOs, especially like guests that are coming on that are CEOs of large organizations, it's actually easier for them to get a full afternoon or a full day off than an hour, because they can put it in the diary, ring fence it, and they're there. And it's the same if you're running your own business or you're the head of a busy department. You can take a day out, get lots of content done that will last months. So you're doing it every 2 months, 3 months. It's not a weekly commitment. It doesn't have to be. And in our experience, it's better if it's not, because it's repeatable and scalable. So in summary, why and what? The why is obvious. It's positioning, brand trust, marketing, know, like, trust, all those good things. Consistency, giving you consistency in your marketing with the highest quality things. And then what? Yeah, what format? What suits you? And we're going to go into this a bit more now on the practicalities, which should hopefully spark some ideas, but asking what you want to achieve and what type of the podcast it will be. Brilliant. So I'm going to move, and I'll see you over there. Now, in this section, we're going to talk about the actual practicalities of executing a podcast. Plan, perform, promote. Okay, those three things, what we're going to try and tackle here. And I head off those questions, but fire in any that you have coming to you as I chat through. So plan it like a show, not a shoot. And what that means is a show is format points. Think of it episodically. You can set up next episodes. You could reference previous ones, treat it as a show and what you want to achieve. Whereas a shoot is a bit more scripted, a bit more perfect. Whereas you want the sort of flexibility to have a discussion, have some stumbles. I could have done this presentation perfectly, but I put some deliberate ones in so it's a real thing. And then own your own space and make it feel like you. So some of the things that we do here is we've got a few different setups and different sets. These panels are interchangeable, but if you're renting a space, look for a space that you can make it your own, okay? Because some companies, they might have, they might do 10 podcasts in there a week. How do you make it yours? Can you change the colored lighting, for example, on the background? Is there shelving units you've got so you can bring in your own stuff? Can you bring in your own chairs? Have they got a different assortment of chairs? What's your version of a chair like, for your podcast that suits your brand? Think about how to make it your own and make it your own space, because you want to, it's that brand position and you want to cement that in the podcast. And then your format points are your hooks, okay? So there's nice structures, and we've got templates we can send out to people, but there's nice structures of a podcast. But really try and think, and this is the innovation, try and think of some unique formats that you can bring into there, and there's a couple of examples that might get you thinking. James Sinclair Business Podcast, it's a good podcast, but they've just brought back their format of how did you win your first customer? Because for them, it's a great reminder of people winning that first customer. The Beyond the Numbers podcast, from day one, because Bev used to do videos on her whiteboard already, I really wanted this picture-in-picture because it's so good if someone's teaching you and entrepreneurs how to, manage VAT or increase profit, why not to cut costs? But you can see the numbers working out. It's a really good format point. We used to bring a thing where we would look at marketing trends we've seen that week and bringing them in. We're talking to a global events company about doing a podcast around, all the logistics that goes into putting up big stands, coordinating people, all of that good stuff. And we thought of a format point, which is what could have gone wrong. So it's a client set podcast where they're actually going to talk through the actual project. But it's a way of those pain points and introducing a little bit of fear, like what could have gone wrong? And they can break down, because that's a really nice format of saying, we have to tackle these things because it could have gone wrong and they're important. And then, with those format points, it actually makes it simple. So you've got your set structure to work through, and simplicity makes it repeatable and it makes it scalable. Also, getting guests is easy because they can see what they're getting into. Now, you want authenticity over polish, but you want to know when to polish and where to polish. And a lot of that is on the branding elements that wrap up the podcast. Because if you go through the effort of bringing equipment in-house and shooting it yourself, going out to a studio, getting a team together, if you go through that effort, you don't want to let it down with the licks of polish, because they're the tiny percent that actually, pays off. You, even just psychologically, people know that you've gone through all this effort and there's this buy-in there. They know it was important to you, and it's just a real brand trust thing and reinforces it. And yeah, prep your guests. So let them know the structure, let them know what's going on. But it's better if it's a free-flowing conversation, Growth Hack, they're in this studio. They're a great example. Their guests are really diverse, and their conversations go to some really interesting places, and then they can bring it back. So the beauty of, if you have a multicam setup, and I advise everyone to have a multicam setup because it gives you really good edit points and cut points, you can have time, it's not a perfect thing, but you can have time towards the end and make your list of things you want to talk about and just have a free-flowing discussion, and then 5 minutes from the end, just address your notes, check that you've answered everything, and if not, let's do it, quick fire rounds. And yeah, so if you're renting a space, you want to try and maximize the opportunity, right, and get the most from it, but you've got to be realistic. So, if you're doing a half day or a full day, 4 really good episodes with you energized, your energy levels consistent, they're better than 8 hurried ones where your brain stops working, where you don't have time to explore or go deeper with a guest. So be realistic there. And then we'll move on to the practicalities. So how do you actually get your podcast? Let's say you've captured it and you've got a few episodes. A little tip here is always try and launch with minimum of 2 episodes, and you probably want a trailer. Trailer's a simple intro will do. We do it with an intro section and then cut in elements of the other episodes you've shot. You want to launch with a minimum of 2 and have some in reserve ready to go as well. And then choose a distribution platform. There's loads out there. Podbean, Acast. Flightcast is the team behind Diary of a CEO's new one. They reportedly will do A/B testing on thumbnails, things like that integrated. But all of these, you upload once, input the information, so your blurb, your titles, and it will distribute out and show up on Spotify, on Apple, many more actually. At the minute, YouTube is more manual, but there'll be an API that will come. And yeah, promote it like you paid it. So you have to put resources into promoting it once it's out there. If you've not got a huge marketing team, this is why I suggest to clients doing like a 2-week cadence. So releasing every 2 weeks. Now, from a business model point of view, I should be saying do weekly because then you need more episodes. But the reason I like every 2 weeks and fortnightly is because it gives you a week to tease and promote the upcoming episodes, to get people to go subscribe and promote the actual podcast itself. And then afterwards, you get a week to distribute clips that give value. Now, my advice is to give value on the platform, not try and drive traffic to the podcast yet on that week, because if you remember that purpose, that business sense, we're actually just trying to connect and engage with new potential customers. So if you can give value there, the algorithms on LinkedIn, on all the socials, they don't like it when you send people away. So you can give value on the page and people will take in that information from you. And yeah, every episode is weeks of content. And that's no lie. You can pull clips, quotes, reels, posts, emails, ads, but where else? Email footers, brilliant. Like, check out our podcast. I think ours, maybe mine still says, because we debuted at number 2 in the Bright Marketing charts, Apple charts, Apple Marketing, and debuted at number 2. So that's there in the footer. But it just gives you another touch point when you're contacting clients, existing new ones. Billboards, accessible. You could launch on a billboard. You could launch on a billboard just for a day or 2 to take those photos, especially on digital billboards in your area. Amazing. take those photos, get them out on socials, and then, your LinkedIn bios. Easy way for people to know, like, and trust you. And then you've got your guests. So tag them in all the posts, give them the information. Kevin from Growth Hack is great. So he's been promoting himself, tagging Brighton. His guests have really ran with it because you're giving them high quality stuff to put out there. And it's amazing. Make noise. And always remember, this action will promote your podcast and you will get growth there. But in the immediately, what are we doing this for? It's marketing your business. That's why we're here. Yeah, and a little note on visibility beats vanity. Okay, so if you've ever recorded your own voice and listened back, you probably hate it. I don't like my own voice. Luckily, I have a team that edits my stuff, which is great because I don't think I'd release anything. But the greater good would actually force me to, because visibility beats vanity. So when you're reviewing podcast content, focus on the content, focus on the guests, focus on, is it slick, not how do I sound? So I'll do some preemptive questions here, but I think most of them at this point are going to be around cost. What does it cost to get a podcast that looks this good? That looks as good as the people you're striving to emulate and stand toe to toe with. And I can tell you our packages. I can tell you some rental costs we've seen out there from and to, and then cost for equipment. It's a little bit more difficult, but the best way is probably if you DM me, I can give you a list of the equipment we use, but also some consumer recommendations that would get, an equivalent quality. So if you're blessed with an actual space that looks good, on brand, feels like you might be an organization where you've got a great breakout room and space, for example. That could be a good option for you. But yeah, for us, for our packages, we do a half day in the studio where we bring it on brand for you. We help you with all the planning, production, delivery, all the editing. There's trailers edited within that as well. And that's $17.50 a month for 2 months. Because the idea is in that half day, you'll get enough content to last at least 2 months. So you can spread it over there and do it every 2 months. So that's that time benefit as well. There's a full day, and that can be off-site, so at your location or a studio near. So we'll go into the middle of London. If your guests are CEOs of big organizations and corporations, so they have to be in London, we can take the podcast to them, and we've got some great networks there. And that's from 6,500, which is broken down over 3 months, so just over $2,000 a month. And the idea there is in a full day, you're going to get at least 3 months of content, probably 4, and then you can actually book in that next shoot every 3 months. And again, it's that time thing. And then we've just introduced a pay-as-you-go podcast, which is in the studio, 90 minutes for £900. And all those episodes, we recommend 2 to 3, depends on the format, but 2 to 3, edited, turned around within 24 hours, you've got them. And then we've got options for you to help turn those into short form videos, help with the branding and the launch. And yeah, we're calling it pay-as-you-go podcasting, but it's part of our mission to make this and this level of podcast production available to as many people, unique voices, feed the marketing and really help people. Okay, well, brilliant. Now I'm going to go through and do some questions with Jess, but I'm just going to grab a drink on our way in. And on a shoot day, you really do have to watch those energy levels, because while it can feel tempting to try and get as many episodes as you can done in a day because you're bringing people in or you've rented the space, 4 great episodes, maybe 6, depending on the format, with high energy is much better than trying to cram 12 in with real diminishing returns. So on the day as well, plan in breaks, because you want to make sure you're able to stay hydrated and look after yourself. And if you're filming for a while, especially over lunch, take that into account so you can make sure that you get food and just time as well to really get to know the guests if they're coming in, especially if you've got a rotating number of guests there. You will see it when you get to the end product and you start editing, because what you want is consistent energy levels throughout every episode without these dips. Okay, let's go and see Jess and answer some questions. Hello, Jess.
Hi.
Is anyone watching? Have we got questions?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of questions.
Okay, cool.
We answered loads in it, but obviously people have some more specific ones. So Janine's wondering how podcasting can help charities and help build their awareness.
Yeah, amazing. So I saw, it was someone else's post, just another marketer, and I'd love to reference them, but it was like over a year ago, and I cannot stop thinking about it. It was a marketer in a non-for-profit sector, and they were saying the problem with charities is they have the best stories.
Yeah.
They have the opportunity to help and give value to like the most people, but they don't have the funding and resources for it. But yeah, I think if you focus on those principles of trying to maximize the content, you can do, I don't know, you could do sessions with people in recovery. You could do sessions with parents of, my wife works for an eating disorder charity called First Steps ED. And they deal with a lot of children with eating disorders. And it's, you could do advice with parents.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much value you can give. And then Bright, we're experimenting with trying to get people, we're discounting the way we work and trying to get some corporate sponsors for charities to get episodes and do that. So it's a big opportunity to help more people.
There's always like a two-step attack as well, as whereas like you can do episodes that are more related to the people suffering as well as the people, like the families in First Steps case.
Yeah.
Into the individuals and the teenagers that are suffering, and then the families that are also having to help them through that. Yeah. And the next question was from George around how important it is to have your own music and sound effects when building a podcast.
Yes, very important. Very important, George. And I'm surprised I didn't mention it. Yeah, there was John Evans, Uncensored CMO. He, within his company, System One, they test a lot of things, and they recently did a report. And I think the audio branding, so, you know, you imagine Netflix as the da-dum.
Yeah.
That associated with the logo improves brand recall by, I think it was like 36%, something like that. It was significant enough. But yeah, it's those elements that I said where know when to polish. Yeah. And I think getting good music, making it yours, using it in a way that's yours, and then bringing audio branding. I mean, you can have it custom, you can manipulate stuff if you've got the skills, you can record your own stuff, but I think, try and make something authentically that fits, but that shows your personality. It's important.
And just to help sort of the people that are looking at podcasts but aren't necessarily in the video world, where would you say audio branding would fit within a podcast? Yeah.
Transition boards are great because some start with titles, but often you can just embed a title in a transition board, and then on YouTube, going to an end board where you can set up a board for find out more, subscribe, view the next episode. All of that stuff should have your branded music.
Yeah, and those transition boards, I don't know, like Off Menu, for example, which is quite a famous podcast, they use it between sections. So how you spoke about like, I'll bring the thing, or have people have sections in their podcasts, they can then use them to transition between those sections. Yeah,
and I mentioned multiple cameras to give you cut points, and you can bring them in there, but you can just do wipes, and you can get an animator to do them, or you can get some stock. And you can have them on there. So it gives you that opportunity. Even if you're single camming, you know, you can actually still cut and move the conversation forward.
Yeah. The next one was from Wayne. He said, I tried to get my team to adopt an engineered demand approach to marketing, creating demand signals rather than waiting for them. It's very difficult to come up with a variety of topics to make sure podcasting content is unique. Any advice on how to create variety?
Yeah, I think look at the conversations you're having daily with customers, because they're the topics and questions that you know they're interested because they're asking you those questions. And you know within your industry those questions are relevant, so it serves that demand area of it. But then you've got a podcast isn't there to sell. Yeah. But you can use it to make people aware of your service and how you approach things as well.
Just off the back of that, Wayne also asked, I can imagine the more salesy a podcast is, the more likely the audience is to switch off. Do you find thought leadership style podcasts work better than This Is Why We're Brilliant styles?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Definitely, yeah. Quite simply. But the other way of doing it is bring a guest in, bring a former client in, and have them tell you you're brilliant.
Yeah.
But don't make it all about that. But that is more genuine than you saying you're brilliant.
Yeah, we've just finished wrapping on a podcast around coaching, and he brought in past clients, and they touched on the services that they helped this individual with and the coaching styles that they used, but it was more around the journey this leader had been on. It's more around their stories and their experiences more than selling the service.
Yeah.
But off the back of it, he is also selling his service because he's helped them get to where they are.
Yeah.
But it's more around making them the champion of that story rather than the company.
Yeah, that's right. You want to position yourself as the sage or the guide.
Yeah.
And they're the hero.
Yeah. And then Carl said, there are so many podcast platforms. I've always thought Apple Podcasts or Spotify the place to be, but which platform should the attention be focused on?
Get it on all of them.
Yes.
The only actual extra tip, and this is real industry insider stuff, is Apple Podcasts do a good way of letting you know where you've charted when you release. So I would say on launch, prioritize pushing Apple Podcasts as your only place, because what you want to see is a jump in numbers for people subscribing to you on one platform rather than spread the vote, essentially. But beyond that, if you're using a podcast like a platform like Acast or Podbean, it will actually put them across to many more. We've seen it where in the US, like a little, I don't know, like a niche podcasting service will pop up that's not as big as Apple or Spotify, but you'll see like a big spike in old episodes because they're now on this new platform. So the beauty of using something like Podbean, Acast, Flightcast is you'll be on all of them.
Yeah, and it makes it easy for you. We've had people come to us before where they're like, I put it on Spotify and then I go through Apple and put it on here and do this and do this. And it's like, you're just making your life difficult.
Yeah.
Like this should essentially be a two-prong attack where it's like you have sort of Podbean, that goes everywhere. And then if you're putting it on YouTube, which if you're doing video, definitely should be on YouTube. You schedule it on there.
And in terms of costs, there is a cost associated with those, but actually we go to a podcast agency. So anyone that podcasts with us, they get hosting for free on those because they're part of our Bright network, which means they are their individual thing. They have their individual logins and everything, but they're part of the network. So it feels they get some network benefits, but it's actually, we just include it.
Yes. And the next one was from Alan. He says, I've posted a number of videos on YouTube, but views are never more than 200. Is it likely to grow if I do more?
I think yes, depending on how you're pushing it. So from your content, how many short form clips are you doing to raise awareness? Because you can have those really hit. I think YouTube, and they are changing because of TikTok, but they right now still reward you if you have subscribers and things, but it is changing. But on TikTok, you can have 0 subscribers and you can have a video do 2 million views if it connects. It rewards the content, not the time and the subscribership. There's loads of things you can do to optimize on YouTube, but I would say look at how you can get more short form clips that hook interest and drive viewers.
Yeah, I agree. The next one was from Matt, who said, with the government recently announcing a change of direction within further education and higher education pathways, how do you feel training providers and colleges can utilise podcasting to show the benefits of what apprenticeships can offer? Yeah,
good question. You can discuss with the team those changes and impact. So that's that industry thought leader, that's that positioning you at the forefront of things that work. But in terms of just promoting the benefits of what you do, it's involve the people, former apprentices, get them on, talk about where they are now, paint that desirable paradise island.
Similar to the charity, you could almost do like a bi-weekly approach where it's like 1 week it's for employers and for parents, and then the other week it's for the apprentice. So rather than having essentially 2 podcasts on the same business, you can almost do like week A, week B, and sort of tailor the content to them. So you're sort of appealing to the employers, but also highlighting the benefits to the apprentices as well.
Yeah, and we've got discussions with a few organisations around this where you can actually use podcasting for a lot of internal stuff, recruitment campaigns, but also internal comms within a larger or sprawling organisation. That's a smart use of it, but definitely for recruitment campaigns. We was talking with a really big company and they we're doing a hiring thing, and they says people are really struggling to like get to know what it's like to work here and our employees. And at the time, we started talking about just video work, where it's, you know, the day in the lives, the interviews and things. But podcasts, that's the idea that came through, and that's much stronger.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next question's from Wayne again. He said, another rule my team lives by is move faster than competitors. How can podcasts be used to be reactive to relevant news to become the authority in the industry? Yeah,
so I would say podcasting done well, you get that brand lift, you get that quality, affords you that permission to actually just pull the camera on yourself.
Yeah.
That's how you would be more reactive. If it stays in the news and things, you can definitely address that and what you've done to, you know, move with the times in light of whatever news is breaking. But I think for that reactive stuff, it gives you the permission to turn it on yourself without damaging any sort of brand impact, because you're surrounded by quality.
Yeah, and also if you are wanting to bring it to the podcast, it's using studios that allow you to be that reactive.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
We've worked with a couple of clients. Our studio hire packages, our podcasts are edited within 24 hours and obviously delivered within 24 hours. So the ability to be reactive in that essence of you can come and film one day and be putting it out sort of the day later.
Yeah, definitely.
And having that ability to be that reactive compared to a studio that's, we've got a 3-month wait time, you're going to have to batch film in advance.
Yeah, because we do we're calling it colloquially pay-as-you-go podcasting. We're doing 90-minute sessions, which means you can have multiple sessions in a day, which is great. So you can come in, drop in, you could get 2 or 3 reactive episodes, and it might be that one is this is just broke, one's how we're handling it, and then, you know, what it looks like going forward. And they're edited within 24 hours using, you know, the workflows we've got here. So you can't get more reactive than that.
Yeah. The next one's from Heather. She says, with live podcasts, is that a thing? Do you recommend freestyling authentic conversation or pre-planned, planted questions and answers to direct the conversation towards, for example, a joke you've already written about, for instance, copywriter podcasts?
Yes. I think the more fun you can make it, the better. So anything you can pre-plan, you know, you could drop in pre-record bits. You can, you can have set things that you're going to run through. But build in flexibility, because you want it to be natural. You want it to be a conversation. Live podcasts are definitely a thing at an elite level. You know, we've gone to see, you and I went to see Off Menu live in Nottingham, you know, in a packed theatre. But on a smaller scale, we've done stuff at a Marketing Derby event a couple of weeks ago. We turned that into a live podcast format, and that was great. Invited people up to participate. I think they had 7 or 8 people join in.
Yeah.
So, and it's that innovation, that making it novel. And you don't need to do it all the time, but I think it's good.
Yeah. And then the next part was, what do you think about the opportunity for copywriter podcasts?
Yeah, really good. Interesting. We had Andrew Bolton on our podcast.
He was great.
A good copywriter, really fun. Follow him on LinkedIn. I think it's important because, you know, it's not an industry where you lump together. You are a little bit, but it's actually an industry that needs defending, and people need to realise what's involved.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost bridging it with. I've not met a copywriter who's not witty, so it definitely shows your wit and your humour, but your unique thinking. You know, how it can be applied, why it's different, why it works. I think there's a big opportunity there.
Yeah, and it's almost it depends on the strategy around podcasting. So is it terms of like making a personal brand for yourself? Is it highlighting the importance of copywriting as we go forward? So you can bring on other copywriters, and almost you can have themes where you're looking at even highlighting AI copywriting now. You could look at a piece of AI copywriting and sort of depict it and sort of look at why it doesn't work and how you'd improve it. And then the next one, is there a recommended duration for a podcast to provide you with enough content to spin off the short form off the back of it?
Not really. I can tell you from the best practices still are, if it's a guest format or a co-host format, 30 to 40 minutes is pretty good, because that's still the UK sort of average commute time, dog walk time, so people can listen to it. Listen in the car. But then the spin-off content from that, typically you'll get, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 really good pieces of short form content you can use. And there might be more beyond that, but probably limit to that. And if your cadence of releases, even if it's monthly, 5 to 10, you want 8, so you can do 2 a week, but yeah, that will fulfill it. But there's no rules. We're speaking with some people who want to do a live coaching session, and they say they need 90 minutes per episode to sort of get into that. Joe Rogan, love him or hate him, the number one podcaster at the minute is his are 3 hours long, almost unedited. And people don't mind picking up a longer form thing in and out of work or over a course of a few days, because it's that exposure time, so they're already bought in with you. Yeah. The important thing is make it interesting. As long as those format points are there, as long as the conversation is interesting and warrants it being an hour. Yeah, and in terms of to provide you with enough content for the short form, if we use Bev for an example, her shorter episodes are anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes. Yeah. And we're still able to pull probably 3-4 shorts from the 5-minute ones. Yeah. She does in essence script some of them, so we do make sure that there is enough content within them. Yeah. But still, say 3 episodes for a 5-6 minute podcast. Yeah. It's about the quality of the content you're sharing. Yeah. It can be 2 hours long, but if there's not enough meat within there, the little short form you'll be able to pull from it. But yeah, even James, who came in, he did one of the 90-minute sessions, and I think he got 8 short episodes. His were sort of really succinct 4 to 8 minutes sort of nice bite-sized episodes. He'll get 2 from each. Yeah definitely. And then another one, 90% of our clients are based in the US. We are a UK-based company. How do we work with getting clients on podcasts without flying them over to the UK? Do you do remote work? Yes, and we're setting some up right now, which is really exciting stuff. But it's I think it's using that news presentery thing where you can have a nice studio, have a nice set, but then you can have them on screen. So they are remote in. We give advice on how to position your cameras and things like that. If you really want to preserve the brand trust, you can get them to have a freelancer on their end to video it. Yeah. But don't let it be a barrier, especially with important members of your team or guests that you really want on. I mentioned we're looking at setting something up where it's someone sat with a mannequin and they've got like a TV for a head, that kind of thing. You can go quite wild with it. Yeah, I think to have that premium edge, it's about bringing them into the room rather than just having them on screen. Yeah. So just because your camera looks great, if you're then just having a Zoom recording, it sort of takes away a little bit from that high quality. So it's sort of how to position that. So it could be a TV, it could be a laptop, it could be an iPad somewhere. Yeah. And it can be that they comment on afterwards, so to keep their video high quality, but it's just having a thought about it rather than just thinking, I look great, it doesn't really matter what my client looks like. Yeah, and it's the innovation part is what I really want to do with that. No one's doing that at the minute, so I just want to do it. And then from Heather, which is a good one, how do you help your guests feel more comfortable and relaxed on mic/camera? Yeah, so this isn't something new to us. We've been going 10 years and almost immediately realised we've got to get better at making people relaxed on camera because, people aren't trained. Having multiple camera setups help, and letting them know we're going to cut between things so we can take out, lots of pauses. If you have an actual brain shutdown, we can edit that out. Podcasting, you get away with lots of stumbles and things, so you can keep it authentic. And it's familiarity and just taking the pressure off, really. Practice, take the pressure off, and know that you'll get better over time. Because you really will. You set up to succeed, but your first podcast should be your worst podcast, and you'll get better over time. So you just got to stick with it. Yeah, definitely. And then around that, it's sort of looking at, do you need to post every week? And what happens if we can't stay consistent? Yeah, again, there's no rules. I'm a big fan because I know how, especially in businesses, how overworked marketing departments can be, or founders that are doing their own marketing or anything like that. So I'm a fan of block filming, try and get 6 episodes in the can, do a mid-season break, 2-3 weeks, and then another 6. You know, you can normally time that mid-season break to be over quieter periods like Christmas or summer, but then also be aware of who your ideal customer is. So a lot of the times over, especially Christmas to New Year, that little gap, it's actually quite good for owners of businesses to think about those additional things and services. So they're actually more open to it. I think that's the best way of managing the time.
Yeah, I think it's also being realistic with your time. If you're a busy person that can only get away once a month, having that and planning how much you can film within that session, how far that will take you, and making sure that when your next filming slot is, that will then take carrying on with the season.
Important point, book it in. Book in that next slot, because you'll know, well, in this slot, I'm filming this many episodes, which release every 2 weeks, we'll run to there. Then I'll have a little gap, and then I'll go. So you can book it in, and that will just force you to evaluate, plan, and move on.
Yeah, there's no point saying you're going to release weekly if you're only able to block a day every 3 months to film. Just being realistic and planning that in when you're first launching.
Consistency matters. People will want that consistency, but that doesn't mean weekly.
And then Alan said, which kind of touches on the point you answered earlier, which was how long should your podcast last? Surely shorter is better.
Yeah, interesting. So with YouTube actually being a dominant sort of place, their agency report from about a year ago was showing how good retention was on 10-minute videos, not necessarily podcasts this was, but 10-minute pieces of content. But yeah, I don't know. It's I think it's as long as it needs to be, really. But that 30 to 40 minutes always feels nice. If it's you solo imparting information and value, 10 to 15.
Yeah, I think it's also depending on what your service is. Like you say, with guests, I feel like a more free-flowing conversation is a little bit more natural to have that longer episode. Whereas if it's quite, touching on when you said, is my industry too boring? If you're fearful that your content's quite dry, it could be that you try and make that engaging 10 minutes, that bite-sized chunk, rather than over-digesting in terms of like an hour episode.
And you could split it.
You can mix it up.
You could have the audio version at 30 minutes, and then on video you could do part 1, part 2. On YouTube, definitely.
Cool. I think that's all the questions we've had through.
Brilliant. Anything from you that we missed?
I don't think so. I think we've gone through all the questions, essentially, answered the ones I had on my list to ask you. So,
brilliant. Well, afterwards, there will be a short survey that pops up, so you can. There's an opportunity to ask more questions there, and just find us on LinkedIn and DM us.
We'll also be sharing the recording of this. So if you have any other questions, we can attach some answers to the recording if needed.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you.